Good morning, everyone. Guys, this video is going to be wild. We're going to be talking about boots on the ground in Ukraine. We're going to be talking about conscription coming to the United Kingdom, how I'm seeing the early stages of this. We're also going to be talking about Ukraine. We're going to be talking about Syria. But guys, before we even get to that, I'm going to share with you something that is so wild. I'm not going to pass judgment on it. I'm going to give both sides of this argument. I don't know what to make of this, but I certainly can't unsee what I've seen. So, guys, I am literally right now, without giving too much of an introduction to it, I'm just going to share the screen with you right now. And I want you guys to tell me in the comments what you actually think about this, because, you know, it's wild. And we'll start with this as well, guys. Is it this one, I think? No, this one. So here we are, guys. We've got this. Now, I saw this as a post on X, and I just want you to focus on this hand gesture here. That hand gesture there here. So for those of you guys who don't know, this is the guy, the rebel leader who's taken over in Syria, and he's doing this with his hands. Now, to me, that seems unnatural. I don't stand like that, and I don't put my hands like that. Now, let me just share a couple of other images with you guys. Where are we? Is it this one? Yeah. So we've got other world leaders all doing the same hand gesture. So let me stop that one. Now, again, you know, I can't unsee this now. I've seen it, so I can't unsee it. Let me share another one with you. Is it this one? Not that one. This one. So here we've got our illustrious leader, Keir Starmer, doing the exact same hand gesture. Now, again, I certainly can't unsee this. Now, I'm not saying that any of these things are connected, but again, it's just so wild. What I found on the old interweb, and I'll put this in the thumbnail, is this thing. Figure 1, pyramid sign of Grand Master Mason. So, you know, I don't know what to make of it, guys. I really don't. You know, it's really peculiar that all the world leaders and this leader of the what's perceived to be a rebel group with no connections to the West. You know, they're all doing what is it? I don't even. Is it that? I don't know. They're all doing that now. I will give fairness where it's due. I know that, you know, in the military, you get told how to stand, you get told where to put your arms. So it may just be the case, and I don't know the answer to this, guys. I genuinely don't. It may be the case that these politicians, these world leaders, you know, when they stand, they get told to do this with their hands because that's, you know, rather than have your hands flailing around, because you kind of don't know what to do with your arms when you're on an interview. Do you fold your arms? Do you know what I mean? So that may be the case, but I can't unsee these things. I genuinely don't know what to make of it, guys. I'm starting to go down rabbit holes that I probably shouldn't. Anyway, guys, it's wild, absolutely insane. We're just going to get on to the rest of the video now, guys. Let me know what you think about that hand gesture. So we'll get on to the rest of the video now, guys. We've got the gifts there that we're going to be getting in the post today for you guys, the subscribers. There's 10 of them. So where are we going to go first? Should we go boots on the ground? No, let's go to Syria first. A lot of people, you know, they're asking what's happening in Syria, what's the situation in Syria, and the reality is the situation in Syria is wild. If right now the Syrian people can come together, unite, they could potentially have, you know, a decent future. But the problem is, historically, that does not happen in the Middle East. Look at the, you know, just look at the recent conflicts in the Middle East. You've got Iraq, US intervention, absolute carnage. Afghanistan, worse now than before the West went into Afghanistan. You've got Libya, Lebanon, you've got Israel, you've got, well, obviously the conflicts in Israel are spanning deep and wide. But what I want to focus on now, guys, is, you know, just a few key locations in Syria. You've got Damascus and its proximity to to Israel. And now you've got Israeli troops moving over the border and securing the high ground on the Golan Heights. Now, I think there's a high potential for the Israelis to move into Damascus at some point and provide some sort of peacekeeping force or something like that. So I don't know where that's going to go. That's what I suspect is going to happen. Now, from the mainstream, guys, I'll just share this with you now. From the mainstream, they're talking about all sorts of stuff happening. It's really difficult to do a video, as an update when things are happening in that part of the world so quickly. So, live, Israel pounds Syria's Damascus. Turkey-backed forces take Manbij. So, for those of you who don't know, Manbij is in the northern corridor. Israeli forces have carried out large-scale attacks across Syria, targeting 3 major airports and other strategic military infrastructure, including the capital Damascus. So remember, guys, it's for the, it's these key strategic locations, the ports, the airports, anything of military capacity. They're the things you either want to destroy or control. Toppled Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's prime minister says he has agreed to hand over power to the opposition-led Salvation government headed by Mohammed al-Bashir. And then we've got these live updates, guys. I don't want to go too much into what's happening, what were these recent updates, because the situation from my experience is, there's claims, there's counterclaims. You get a fog of war. You get somebody claiming one thing and somebody claiming another. But on a broader spectrum of things, I feel this is going to drag this whole region into a wider conflict, because you've got other stakeholders in that region. You've got the Iranians, and who've got who want to have influence in that area. You've got Russians who want to have influence in that area. Obviously, you've got the population of Syria, which I think right now will be united for a limited period of time. And then I think what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, you will see this situation deteriorate. You will see persecution. You will see splits in society. And I think right now, guys, you're going to see over the next couple of weeks and months, you're going to see a deteriorating situation in Syria. And that's when I think the Israelis are going to have to move in and secure Damascus. When we talk about these large, these countries, these relatively large countries in the Middle East, you've got to understand that the country might be big, but the main power is in and around Damascus. That's why early on, when the Syrian forces were retreating from other towns and cities, I thought, okay, what they're doing is they're pulling out of these towns and cities because they don't want to get bogged down in these other towns and cities defending them. They want to bring all their troops in and around Damascus and just have one concerted effort to defend Damascus. That didn't happen. They kind of left without any fighting. So I'm kind of suspicious about who's running this whole thing. Again, I've just shown you guys the picture of the guy doing this. I don't know what it means, guys. I really don't know what it means, but that's kind of, 10,000 feet high view of what's happening in Damascus. Now, there's other warnings come out, because obviously the Russians have a huge stakeholding in Syria now. Because, well, I guess they do or they don't. But the ports on the west coast of on the west coast of Syria. Now that gives Putin access to the Mediterranean. So World War III warning as. Sorry, is that? Yeah, World War III warning is Putin might do something crazy after having ambitions thwarted in the Middle East. I don't know if Putin's ambitions in the Middle East have been, wow, there's so many ads, have been thwarted in the Middle East. But if he has to lose that, if Putin has to lose that port on the west coast of Syria that gives him access to the Mediterranean, then that would be that would be a huge blow for Putin, because realistically, I think this may actually be a blessing in disguise for Putin, having to move all his a lot of his military and a lot of his infrastructure out of Syria, out of Damascus, out of the airfields in and around Damascus, in and around Syria, because that capacity that was in Syria is now moved, and that can then be used in Ukraine. So it doesn't really matter for Putin what forces he has in actual Syria propping up the Bashar government. Now that's gone, I think he wants to keep hold of the port that gives him access to the Mediterranean. If he loses that, yes, it's a big blow for Putin. But I don't know if he's going to come to some sort of some sort of deal with the rebels that have taken over. I don't know what's coming in the future, guys. Like I said earlier, if the Syrians can come together, if they can unite, they may have a future. I don't think that's going to happen, guys. What I think is going to happen, like I said, I think Syria is going to descend into chaos in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, and then everything's going to be back to a normal, destabilized Middle Eastern country. Now, guys, you can take your pick. When has a rebel takeover in the Middle East ever led to stability, peace, and prosperity? I don't see it ever happening, guys. If you can tell me when that's ever happened, please put it in the comments. But this has never happened before. So historically, what's going to happen in Syria? This place is just going to erupt in. It's just going to descend into further destabilization. You're going to see mass movements of people. You're going to see mass persecutions. And I'm saying this because this is what's happened historically. This is what normally happens when a rebel takes over a region in the Middle East. Anyway, so let's come straight to Ukraine now, guys. I'm gonna share this. I'll share this, guys, just for the for the headline, and then I'm going to show you on the map what it actually means. So, giant Russian assault is coming. This tiny Ukrainian counterattack can't spoil it. So, there's been a Ukrainian counterattack, and they've had some success in the east of Ukraine. So let's have a look quickly on what that actually means then. Remember, this has been a counterattack, and we'll come to the share map now, and I'll show you guys what exactly this, what exactly they mean by counterattack if I can find the map, where is it? I think I've lost the map. There we are. So when are we? So this is the 10th of the 11th, guys. I'm just going to fast forward really quickly. Remember, keep an eye on these locations here, guys. Pokrovsk and Valyeka Novosilka. So I'm just going to fast forward, and then watch for the Ukrainian counterattack where they push back against the Russians. Did you see it? Did you see the counterattack? No? Okay, right. Me neither. Right, so let's zoom in. Zoom into this area here, guys, okay? Right, okay, so let me show you guys, okay? This is the counterattack that the Ukrainians have put in, or as I understand it. Did you see it there? So this is what I'm believing is the counterattack. So look at all the ground the Russians have taken, and this is what they're reporting as their counterattack. I get it, take it when you can, but this is the counterattack. So this location here, guys, that's the counterattack. That's where the Russians managed to force the Ukrainians managed to force the Russians back. Literally, that's the counterattack. So let's look at this on a bigger picture again, guys, on the wider scheme of things. Oh, wrong way. So these are the two areas, guys, Pokrovsk, Valyeka, Novosilka. So they're talking about the Ukrainians managed to push the Russians back, maybe a couple hundred meters. Doesn't mean anything, guys. Does not mean anything. Doesn't change the situation on the ground at all. This is why there's going to be no peace deal. There's going to be no peace talk. Doesn't matter what Trump says. Doesn't matter what Zelensky says. I do feel now, though, guys, the likelihood of boots on the ground is just, I've been saying this for such a long time. I feel it's an inevitability now. There's more rhetoric coming out of You know, there's more rhetoric coming out of Ukraine. We've already had Western leaders talk about boots on the ground. And now we've got the situation where Zelensky is openly talking about it, guys. You know, Zelensky targets diplomatic end to Putin's war and hints at a role for foreign troops. So, you know, he's talking. I'll put all these links in the description, guys. But, you know, we're heading towards a situation where we're going to have foreign boots on the ground in Ukraine. They're going to be a peacekeeping force. Well, there may or may not be a ceasefire. If there's a ceasefire, it's only going to be on paper. And, you know, once those boots are on the ground, then we're going to have the situation where the peace deal will fail. It will, it won't be observed. It will fail, or for whatever reason, Putin will do an attack, or something will happen in the east of Ukraine. And then, oh, guess what? We've got all these peacekeepers in Ukraine now. So what's going to happen next? Oh, well, we've got all these peacekeepers in Ukraine. So guess what? Take their peacekeeping hats off and put them warfighting hats on, because by then they've already established logistical chains. They've already established the barracks. They've established the training, the ammunition supply, and they're, you know, and they're bedded in, so they can then push forwards. What else have we got, guys? Conscription. Here it is, guys. Here it is. And again, right, guys, there's a lot of ads on here, so I'll just, in fact, I'll just read it for you guys. I'll put the link in the description. So you're gonna have to bear with me here, guys, and let me connect these dots for you. Okay. So the article is digital IDs under fire as cash campaigners fear total government control of people's finances. Now, you can just do a quick search for digital ID and you see what's coming on there. Now, Britons are concerned about the proposed digital ID and what it means for banking going forwards. Campaigners are warning that the government's plans for a digital ID could be the next step in providing the state of total control over people's finances, financial freedoms, if given the green light. This system will eventually allow people to prove their identity for paying tax to opening bank accounts using a government-backed app, the Times reports. Now, guys, listen, you know, I'm going to connect some dots here for you. So I'll put this link in the description. You can go and search that yourself. One of the ways that when Rishi Sunak was talking about national service, now we've got to understand the differences between conscription and national service. I do think, and I've thought from day one, that national service will be imposed when we move to these conflict areas, you know, and especially when we're looking at conflict on an industrial scale. National service is an inevitability. We need to get people working in factories and producing stuff for the front line. Now, national service and conscription are different. Conscription is where you go out and you do the fighty stuff. National service would be, you know, it's not predominantly fighty stuff. It's, you know, making stuff, it's building stuff, it's making stuff for a war effort. Now, one of the ways that Rishi Sunak, when he was questioned on national service, but remember, you know, national service is the first, guys, it's the first phase of conscription, because once national service is in force, then it's a lot easier to push on conscription. So when Rishi Sunak was questioned on how he would, you know, how he would impose national service, if just, you know, by national service, that is the first step towards conscription, but they are separate. So when Rishi Sunak was asked how he would, you know, how he would impose this, he said he would restrict people's access to finances and take away people's driving licenses. Well, guess what? How easy will that be if all you have to do is flick a switch? How easy will that be if all you have to do is touch a button? For those of you who've got kids at school, especially in secondary school or comprehensive, you guys will know what's happening in the school system. You've got a mass reliance on, you know, on Google, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what it is. You've also got this situation now where kids are using their facial recognition and fingerprint to pay for their school dinners. So guess what? When those kids grow up and they are at an age now where they can, you know, when they're in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, using facial recognition to pay for stuff, using fingerprints to pay for stuff just becomes normal, because they've been, what's the word? indoctrinated into that early on in their life. And you can go even back, you know, you've got kids now having these dojo points where if they're good, if they do something good in the class, they get a dojo point, which is just social, you know, social credit scoring. Now, guys, you know, I do think all these things are coming. You know, on the face of it, they sound like good things, but, you know, like so many things, you know, the phrase ultimate power corrupts ultimately, you know, there's just so many question marks, you know, there's so many question marks about what's happening right now, guys. And to me, it doesn't seem like it's heading anywhere good. And especially with, you know, Keir Starmer in charge. Anyway, guys, threats to the United Kingdom. So this is from an article from yesterday, I believe it was. Yep. So Britain's key gas pipelines under threat by Putin as RAF on alert. So the gas pipelines that supply the United Kingdom with gas from the North Sea, they're now under threat of sabotage. And remember, guys, what I've been saying for the longest time, sabotage, 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 that is the real threat. Putin's backed saboteurs could seek to target pipelines carrying some 42% of Britain's entire gas supply. Britain has been forced to step up surveillance over the North Sea amid fears Vladimir Putin's Russia could sabotage a key gas pipeline. The Royal Air Force has already started ramping up its surveillance and monitoring of waters between Norway and the UK, Whitehall sources have said, with a squadron of US aircraft joining British counterparts in a post-Cold War first. So there's all these. Let me just share an article with you guys and show you where these gas pipelines are, because, you know, the energy system, energy is a valid, you know, it's a valid target now, guys. So these are the gas pipelines here, guys, in the North Sea that they're talking about. And I'll put this link in the description. So people are saying that they're going to sabotage these. Now, what I would say is, you would probably, like for me, I would probably want to do it onshore, because you can have more of a, you know, if you can take out the pumps and the pumping stations, you're going to have, it's going to be a lot easier than getting into the water, because where are they going to come from the water? They're going to have to go under the sea. They're going to have to use submarines. I'm sure the Russians have that capacity, but this would be a, you know, this would be a, you know, it would be a spectacular attack by the Russians if they pulled that off, or whoever pulled that off. You know, I genuinely don't know. But remember, we already have a precedence of this with the Nord Stream pipeline. So we know that these sort of, you know, spectacular attacks, by spectacular, I mean, like, I don't mean like it's good. I mean, it's huge and it's absolutely insane. So the United Kingdom is under threat now from sabotage. We know this. For those of you guys who've been following the channel, I've said that the real threat to the United Kingdom comes from sabotage. So can you imagine the situation in the United Kingdom right now? And again, I don't know whether this is going to happen on the 20th or not, but can you imagine a situation where we get to a specific date and the gas pipeline just stops pumping gas? You know, can you imagine a situation if, you know, there are coordinated multiple acts of sabotage on the same days? Guys, you know, there are a lot of things now, a lot of data points pointing towards the United Kingdom coming under a massive, you know, coordinated sabotage attack. And it's going to be very difficult then to pin that on the Russians, because there's always going to be pro-Russian people, or whoever's done this, the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, the North Koreans. You know, doesn't really matter who's put these plans into action. The reality is they're going to happen now. We're getting more and more people talk about this. Guys, absolutely wild times ahead. Like always, guys, I'll put all the links in the description. Guys, that's it. I'm going to max a grid. I'll get you guys another video later.